Hi, welcome to these Organic Devotions, a weekly series of reflections that emerge out of life here on the farmstead and a life lived in pursuit of holiness and reverence and awe. Thanks for being a part. We brought home 4 new chickens over the weekend. They're young, just a little over 5 weeks old, but old enough to live outside and eat more grown-up food, though not old enough and big enough to move in with the rest of the flock. For a while then, they'll get special attention. They'll peck around in their own little yard, sleep in their own little coop, and eat a growth food designed for their special needs. All that, and we'll be extra vigilant about watching for predators. In other words, they get extra attention because they're smaller and weaker and more vulnerable. According to the Bible, that kind of thinking should extend beyond the chicken yard. Over and over again, when asked about those who have successfully run the great race to the heavenly reward, the Bible shines the spotlight on care of the little chickens. Most people are familiar with the horrific story of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all kinds of reasons have been suggested for why it happened. But according to the prophet Ezekiel, this was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excess of food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and the needy. They were haughty. When Jesus offered his farmyard description of the Last Judgment, the separation of the sheep from the goats, the ones who were ushered into paradise received this explanation from the Holy One: I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you took care of me. I was in prison and you visited me. And then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did all that happen? And the king will answer them, truly, I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me. Of course, the postscript explains to those consigned to eternal punishment that they didn't do those things, failed to see the holiness of those in need. And then there is that provocative time when a religious intellectual approached Jesus about how to inherit eternal life. The core of Jesus' answer is contained in the familiar parable of the Good Samaritan. Salvation, it turns out, is less about religious obligation, less about ritual purity, less about dogmatic confessions and creeds than about noticing the injured in the ditches and doing whatever we can to help. The Hebrew prophet Micah summed it up pretty well. He's told you what's good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with your God? In these days of triumphalistic chest beating, when everybody's intent on being the biggest and the baddest and the strongest and the richest, while belittling the weak and the wounded and the helpless as losers not deserving our attentions, it might be helpful to go back and read our own sacred stories to be reminded of what's really important. Or just go find a baby chicken to hold to remember how fragile precious things can be. Discipleship is best a conversation, and I'd love to hear from you. You can write me at organicdevotions@gmail.com. Until next week, though, walk humbly. Bye-bye.